All right, so in this video, we're going to see how the West managed to change China in the late Qing dynasty. So it was changing, just despite the efforts of the conservatives within the Qing government. You can't stop change, you can't slow down change. And the West had a great impact on China, particularly in its economy. It introduced it to modern transportation and communication. You even had a lot of foreign investment in things like railroad companies in China. It turned China into an export market because China had many marketable products or commodities, things that people wanted, like tea, like silk, like porcelain, for instance. And many foreigners wanted that. Now, unfortunately, if you turn yourself into an export market, it's just like what we saw in the previous chapter with colonialism. You're shipping out a lot of your products, not necessarily making your own stuff. You're sending out a lot of your raw materials, and that's not necessarily healthy for the economy as a whole. It can be for some, but not as a whole. And it also integrated or made it part of the world economy. Like I said, you had a lot of foreign money coming into China, investing in industry and investing in plantations and railroads. The problem with that is all that foreign investment was coming in, but those foreign investors then take the profits that those companies that they invested in made and take it out of China. So a lot of the profit being developed in China is not staying inside China to be reinvested within China. So a lot of profit is going elsewhere, and that's not healthy for the economy, because what happens is, just like in the colonies, you have a handful of really rich and a lot of poor. So there was this increasing gap between the rich and the poor, and oftentimes the rich were Western educated and influenced, and they wanted things like democracy, for instance. And then you had the uneducated masses out in the countryside who were still mainly farmers and had no introduction to the West and Western culture and Western society and Western political thought like democracy. But his culture was changing, particularly in the urban areas, right? In the urban areas, in the cities, where you have a large population of foreigners anyway, like a Guangzhou, for instance, or Beijing or Nanjing, those larger Chinese cities where you already have a lot of foreigners there for business purposes and diplomatic purposes. They bring their culture with them, and then that culture influences the cities. So you see the big cities in China becoming more and more westernized, particularly among the youth. So you start to see more and more people dress like a Westerner, like that picture of Sun Yat-sen from the previous video. You start to see Western music and Western dancing and Western literature and Western theater begin to pop up in the cities. Now you go out in the countryside. Now in the countryside, in small farming villages, life had changed very little over the centuries. It was still very traditional. And that's just a trend we've seen all year. Change often starts with the cities and then radiates outward slowly, but the change usually begins in the cities first.